This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 363 for the week of June 15th, 2014. What up, AOs? Welcome back to Kanzenshuu,
the podcast.
That's right, an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site.
Kanzenshuu.
We, two of us, right here, right now, for all eternity, cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit, the entertaining. My name is Mike VegettoEX. I am in my regular area for recording process. Heath, Mr. Hujio, sir, you're in a different place.
I'm not in my regular place.
Coming to us live through the internet.
The magic of the intertubes.
Hey man, it's been a while.
It has. It's been a little crazy, I think, for everyone.
You know, not for lack of trying. The last 2 weeks, I have actually tried doing shows, and then something blows up, someone loses something, someone falls asleep. It happens.
I'm sorry. I can't help that I fall asleep at random times.
I understand.
I was like, I'm doing pretty good. Mike, what's up? And then I get a text message, and I actually didn't get it till like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's okay. It's fine. Here we are, man. It has been a crazy last few weeks, to say the least.
It has been.
For all of us.
Yeah.
The site has been trucking along. All the news is there. I listen to a lot of podcasts where it is part of a larger site, a larger community, and I am one of those terrible people that does not get engaged on a larger level. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who only listen to Kanzenshuu. You are doing yourself a disservice. There is so much written content. Throw us in your RSS reader. If you're still doing that, Google Reader death was the death of many of us, but I have transitioned to Feedly. Makes things wonderful. Throw us in your reader, throw us in your bookmarks, or just obsessively click and refresh every day like we used to in 1998. That's okay too.
I still do that.
Do you? You still go directly to websites?
Well, because I had Google Reader, and then it died, and I just never got anything else.
You just gave up? Yeah, I know. I feel like it's kind of 50-50 with who just gave up entirely. Oh, maybe it's like 50, 25, 25. Half people just gave up. 25% of people just rely on Twitter to get anything. And then the other 25.
I was going to say, if it's interesting enough, it's usually in my Google or in my Twitter feed. So
yeah. What I'm getting at is there is Dragon Ball news and content and analysis for you. www.kanzenshuu.com. So many newses these last couple of weeks. Battle of Gods is coming to North America. There's a new game called Dragon Ball Xenoverse coming to the PS4 and various other systems. We are not talking about any of that right now. Heath, a while ago, years ago at this point, I'm in my basement now. You were sitting across from me. We did what we lovingly called What the Hell Just Happened to Dragon Ball Kai.
Is that what we called it?
I think that is actually the name of the episode if you go back and look at it. That was 2011, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was pretty accurate.
Yeah. This is not quite the follow-up to that. This isn't What the Hell Happened to Dragon Ball Kai Part 2. I guess we could call this What the Hell is Happening to Majin Buu Arc of Dragon Ball Kai right now.
In the present.
Heath, man, you have been taking up the mantle for Dragon Ball Kai on Kanzenshuu, and I am so eternally grateful.
For some unknown reason.
It's a disaster, isn't it?
It's a complete and utter disaster. It was originally.
Yeah, it totally was.
I feel like, I can't remember who, I believe it was Gaffer Tape, even on the forums, that just said, man, there is just no way we can get away from this being a clusterfuck, can we? It's like, no, we can't. Anything they can possibly do to kind of screw something up, it seems like they're going out of their way to do it. But, it makes it, I guess you would say, interesting. It gives you something to talk about, something to follow. But honestly, this is the stuff that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah, but that's what we're doing this episode. Yay! We're talking about the Buu Arc of Kai. What is going on with it? We're going to cover everything. How it came to be again, I suppose. All the voice acting, the music decisions going on. It's kind of a recap of news that we already knew, but we're going to set the stage for you. And then we're going to talk about how it seems to be going and almost a controversial thing that's happening with it as it slowly starts to perhaps make its way abroad. And that's really what we're doing this episode. It's 2014. Here we are talking about Kai again like it's a relevant thing, because it is.
It's just really weird.
I can't place myself in time. Kai has always been this out-of-time product that never really made much sense. And we were talking for, honestly, years about, if they're going to do it, they got to do it now. If they're going to do it, they got to do it now. And here we are in 2014. It's like, maybe they shouldn't have done this.
They should have left well enough alone.
Maybe they should have. That's where we're going to go. I mean, there's so much to cover. As we started recording, tossed the question out on Twitter, and there are tons of responses. I mean, Kai is just that kind of thing where you can't help but just kind of crash back in your chair, shake your head a little bit. It's just that kind of thing where it's, man, deep sigh. Deep sigh.
We'll all get through this together.
We will. Let's hold hands. Heath, are you ready? Shall we get right into our topic? The Buu Arc of Dragon Ball Kai has begun. All right, so Dragon Ball Kai, it was this thing. It was created for the 20th anniversary of the TV adaptation of Z specifically. So 1989 to 2009. 2009 was the 20th anniversary. Dragon Ball Kai began as they kind of promoted it as closer to Toriyama's original manga. So they would do things like cut out a lot of extraneous filler material, reduced episode counts. I mean, it's easiest for me to think back to the Saiyan arc because honestly, that's the only one I personally watched in its entirety. It was 36 episodes originally, down to 16, 17 episodes with loading the bodies up over in Kai?
16.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a significant decrease in episodes. And it continued onward from there. They went through the Saiyan arc, the Frieza arc, into the Cell arc. By the time the Cell arc wrapped up, we were just under 100 episodes. And the way that Kai came to a close was almost on these three differing fronts that all contributed to a whole bunch of weirdness. The first front alone was, hey, we're ending with the Cell arc. That's kind of weird. Now, Heath, we've talked extensively. We've tried to make it very clear that we're not saying anything in particular is what we absolutely believe to be the sole reason. But if you look at how the ratings were going, if you look at how the merchandise sales in particular were going, I mean, there was almost this inverse correlation of merchandise sales and ratings and popularity and success. It did not add up to keep it going, right?
And on top of that, you throw in a new music scandal.
Well, that's front number two. Kenji Yamamoto, hired to do the entire musical score for Dragon Ball Kai, a return composer from kind of this alternate world of Dragon Ball. Yamamoto, under various other names, under his name itself, under variations of Monolith, later under variations of Ken's, working on so many video games for the franchise. So came in to do all new background music for Kai. We get, 2-3 episodes before it ends, PDF up on Toei's site. It's come to our understanding that multiple suspicious pieces of work may be infringing on other copyrights, blah, 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 blah. The entire musical score from Dragon Ball Kai is ripped out, last-minute replacement, recycled music, Shunsuke Kikuchi's score from the original version of Z, plopped in for those last couple episodes, replopped in for the entire rest of the 98 episodes. I mean, that was a complete disaster. I mean, disaster is just the best word to describe it.
It really is. I mean, they had to pull back on so much. It delayed DVD sales because they had to actually delay production, go back and redo a couple, swap out all the musical tracks for Kikuchi, and it also hit the North American market and a lot of other foreign markets where they had to pull back and say, hey, you guys can't air this episode. You can't do this until we get you new audio.
Right.
And I mean, it was a huge disaster.
You think back to how that was going on. We had 2 cable networks airing it. Depending on which episode you were watching on which channel, you could get one of 2 different musical scores. I know the 5th part of Dragon Ball Kai was delayed for quite some time. Then the seasons as they were coming out, back to the recycled music. I mean, it was just a disaster.
Yeah, and if you bought the original Japanese Blu-ray, since they were releasing those in larger sets as opposed to the individual DVDs, there are episodes in Japanese on the Blu-ray that have the original Yamamoto score, whereas those same episodes on the DVD don't. But then you go to the North American market and all the Funimation DVDs, and it's even worse than that. And then both sides of the ocean had to start recalling things or stop producing them and slowly pull them off of the market very quietly. And it was a mess. And it's really hard to document. We still, to this day, get questions from a lot of people of, if I buy this, what music is going to be on here?
Well, this, and if that, then this. I mean, we have a chart that I made with little blocks, but that block chart needs to be updated with a whole slew of extra releases.
I know.
So getting back to disaster, I mean, it's almost a literal word in this sense, in the unfortunate sense. The Tohoku earthquake and tsunami disaster in Japan was not responsible for Kai ending, although its coverage, its ongoing coverage, did preempt the television airing of what would have been the final episode of Kai. That was episode 98, when Trunks returns to his future to kind of deal with the aftermath there. That was relegated to the home release as a bonus episode. So that, again, I want to stress that didn't contribute to Kai ending. It just happened, unfortunately, in so many respects, to come at that exact same time as Toriko was set to go on that date. Toriko had to start on that date. So that's how that went down.
It was yet another mess. I don't even know how to describe it towards the end. And at that point, everyone was just like, well, whatever. I think we're done.
Yep. So Kai continued to proliferate throughout the world. I mean, alternate versions were getting dubbed from other companies in various languages, subtitled releases airing in certain countries. I mean, Kai is part of Dragon Ball, which Toei always goes on to say it's one of our evergreen franchises. We're going to exploit it as best we can, get it out there, get it making money. Dragon Ball does very well internationally, more so than most of their other franchises. Made total sense. So Kai just continued onward for a while and throughout the world, wrapped up with the Cell arc, maybe continued airing, couple repeats here and there. Kai was the thing. Toriko took over its time slot. Whoops, Toriko's ending.
Yay.
Heath, this is something that, I mean, we did an extensive documentation on what was going down at that point in time. And I'm really proud of how we outlined that. And I don't want to do this patting ourselves on the back, but we outlined it in such a way that there was no other alternative. Toriko was going off TV and Kai was taking its slot.
And it was an ongoing rumor up to that point, but it wasn't, solidified that this is exactly what was going to happen. It was just kind of hearing things through the grapevine. You're putting pieces together. Companies are starting to drop Toriko like nobody's business. And so you kind of just have to go with it.
You don't cancel a card merchandise line for no reason.
No.
So Toriko ran its course. That leaves it open for Kai to come back in 2014, back for the Buu Arc. And just, again, to quickly recap some of this stuff, we had known for well over a year, almost 2 years it felt like, if you really do the math for all the leaks, that it was being recorded in Japan. Buu Arc was coming. It wasn't even going to air in Japan. Kai was doing so well internationally, they were producing it for the foreign market. So you've got to lay down a baseline track to translate from, to include on bilingual DVDs. That made sense. A year goes by, nothing happens.
So to step back a bit, just to kind of preface it, maybe a little timeline here is that we found out that Kai was continuing before Toriko was ending.
That's true, yeah.
So because we found out, was it like November? Hey, look, I have a site. November 2012 that we found out that Kai was continuing, although we found out also it would only be internationally.
So we have this raw information and kind of nothing to do with it other than, all right, this is happening. No one's officially confirming it. And when you directly ask them about it, because Julian is silly gaijin and he can do things like that, and even other folks like Kay can be a little forward for Japanese. I appreciate that. People they ask are kind of like, no. I can't talk about that. Stop. Abort.
The weird thing was Mayumi Tanaka posted it on her blog.
She doesn't care.
So
she doesn't afraid of anything.
If it's in text form, okay. A lot of people can refute it and say, yeah, maybe that's what they're doing, especially if she deletes it. Mm-hmm. But she posted a picture of her with like everybody.
That's the thing. So, we get textual accounts. We get pictures from recording sessions. The Buu Arc of Kai is happening. Time goes by. Nothing is happening. In the meantime, as you said, we learned about this before Toriko ended extended hiatus. Who the hell knows? So it just goes onward from there. And here we are. It is indeed happening. And it's almost the flip-flop of what Tanaka said was going to happen. It's specifically airing in Japan first and then making its way abroad.
Yeah, which is really weird when you think about it, because Kai is only continuing because there was international interest.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that basically said, hey, we will foot the bill if you guys will produce more episodes. And of course, Toei says, hey, you're going to give us money? Sure, why not? We'll do it.
Would you say that Dragon Ball Kai was a flop in Japan?
You mean initially?
As a whole, from the Saiyan to the Cell arc.
Yeah, I think you could label it as a flop.
And why would you classify it as a flop? Is that comparatively speaking? Is that objectively speaking?
I think it's more subjective.
I mean, everything is, but okay, right. Continue.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight.
Sure. That's what I'm here for.
I would say that it is a flop just because it never really took hold in Japan. Like, I think they thought it would.
They tried their damnedest.
Yeah. The ratings actually weren't terrible in comparison. I mean, it was always right up there with One Piece. It was either a spot or two behind it. I think once it actually beat One Piece.
The average, is this what our analysis was? The average of Kai was higher than the highest of Toriko as a whole? Yeah.
So, well, I think even the minimum on Kai was
about level with
just
the
a
highest,
little bit over the average of Toriko. So, yeah, it's just overall the biggest hindrance that Kai had going for it was they tried to slap the brand on everything.
They really did.
And
I mean, it was
nobody wanted to buy it. They would watch it, but nobody wanted to buy it because a lot of what Kai shot for, especially when it started out as, oh, this is an anniversary production. We're doing this for old fans. You can watch it with your kids. You know, we're trying to bring in some generations. And a lot of the people that watched it were older generations, and they already have bought a lot of stuff over the years. You just give them Dragon boxes. They now have this series. There just was not a huge incentive to actually buy it.
For once, we had a parallel in the Japanese market to what had been going on with Funimation for years, which was constant re-releases of the show. And it wasn't constant in Japan. It was the Dragon Box releases, and then it was the single disc releases. But it was a complete release and then a broken down complete release that had just finished coming out. And it's, to me, it's exactly the same as here's your orange bricks, here's your Dragon boxes, here's your Kai, here's your levels. Oh, the levels aren't doing so well. I wonder why.
I mean, I guess the easiest way to put it is I would consider it a flop because they had to cut it short.
Right. If Dragon Ball Kai was not a flop, it would have gone directly into the Buu Arc. The merchandise sales with a Dragon Ball product on TV presently airing were dropping. The instant that Kai went off of TV, miraculously, merchandise sales popped up again. Now, that could tie into innovative things like what they were doing with Dragon Ball Heroes. Correlation does not necessarily mean causation. However, lots of correlation going on here. So I think we can just stick with Kai flop due to not going directly into Buu. But here we are, 2009 to 2011, Saiyan Frieza Cell, 2014. The Buu Arc is presently airing. So Heath, where I want to go from here is what is exactly going on with it? What are some of the changes that people are watching, can look forward to in the future if they're waiting for some kind of localized release? And then some of the more disastrous things already going on with the Buu Arc, even though we're only a couple months into it. It's insane.
11 episodes.
11 episodes. It's only 11 episodes. I say it's only, but oh my God, it's been 11. So here's the thing. Heath, I have not seen any of the Buu Arc of Kai beyond the opening and closing animation. Now, I am happy to hand in my #1 Dragon Ball fan card right now. It's okay. I give up. I'm done. On the flip side, you probably know more about the ins and outs of these episodes than any other person in North America.
Unfortunately.
You're a good man, Charlie Brown.
I don't know who bestowed this upon me, but I think I just kind of picked up the mantle after it ended to begin with. And it's like, well, I did it for the first part. I might as well do it
might as well keep going. And we obviously have Julian over in Japan who occasionally watches it. I know Osaka, at least his region, is a week behind the other regions. It's always been that way for him. So Julian's always a week behind in the broadcast. But Heath, in the interest of full and complete documentation, you have been doing everything from credits to Reanimation, not so much. So we're going to get into some of that. But
we'll get into that, but I'm kind of thankful that it's not happening.
I'm sure.
Just because it saves me so much time.
Yeah, I know. So I guess let's hit some of the major differences and updates for the Buu Arc of Kai versus what came before. Now, the TV broadcast of Kai in Japan was in a cropped, occasionally pan and scanned widescreen. The home release was kind of weird. The Blu-rays were the proper full 4:3. The Japanese DVDs were the same crop as the TV broadcast. Mm-hmm. Now, over here in North America, Funimation just put everything out, DVD and Blu-ray, proper 4:3. Various other countries got different things. I think France, for example, got a crop. But I mean, wherever it is that you got stuff, it may be different. We're kind of focusing on Japan here.
In Japan around that time, they were switching their television over to digital terrestrial.
Right. And it was, hey, please put everything in widescreen.
Yep, pretty much. And my assumption has always been they had already started producing it in full screen when this really kind of hit them that, oh, we can't air it in full screen because Fuji TV won't let us, because Fuji TV had already started to switch everything over to a 16:9 widescreen.
Yeah, digital doesn't necessitate widescreen, but that was kind of the mantra at the time, was give us everything widescreen.
So they already were producing it that way. And to start everything off, they went in and with the telecine machine, just digitized all of the film negatives. And so they had all that on hand. We've already scanned it all. Well, let's just keep going with what we were doing, and that's how we ended up with the full screen version. This time around, everyone already knows right off the bat it has to be in widescreen. And on top of that, you add in the fact that it seems they're working under a constrained budget. So with this reduction, now all of a sudden, well, if we don't have to mess with all this top portion of the screen and we just do everything in widescreen, let's just do it.
Just crop it off.
A la Funimation's cropping.
Right. And we know this beyond just the TV broadcast because we do have listings for the upcoming DVD and Blu-ray sets that specifically state they are widescreen.
Yeah, and they're completely opposite. And in fact, they just recently announced that they would be re-releasing new, larger box sets of the Saiyan and Frieza arcs, along with the Cell Jinzo Ningen episodes. And those also say 4:3 full HD. So it's the same listing as before. This clearly says 16:9.
So TV broadcast and the upcoming home release, we can pretty much say for sure the Buu Arc is going to be the inconsistent continuation. It's going to be widescreen, everything.
Well, and that's the weird thing when you really think about it. Internationally, especially in North America, which, as it appears from everyone that I've talked to, the major player in this is Funimation. They are the ones that push for this the most, and I would not be surprised at all if they're backing the majority of it. Because, frankly, they are the go-to company almost globally anymore. So I think they kind of have a little capital they can work with. But it's interesting that they released everything full screen last time. Now, this is being produced, as far as we can tell at this point, because it's started airing in other countries already. It's airing in Japan, and we have these listings for upcoming releases in Japan, and they're all 16:9 widescreen. So it leads you to wonder why Funimation would want to continue a series in two different aspect ratios.
I mean, that's
and
nothing
then you go,
different
well,
for them.
It's Funimation.
Whatever. So. I mean, that coming from Funimation, I wouldn't even bat an eye at that. Coming from Toei,
but it's
I'm
just
like, oh, really?
Logically, you think about it for a second, and it's like, well, that's just really weird. Because one thing I will give Funimation is they're consistently consistent in how they do things. If that makes sense. I mean.
Maybe.
If it's going to be Z, it's going to be in widescreen. If it's Dragon Ball or GT, it's full screen, which, okay, whatever. But this, now all of a sudden, not only is it just this mangled thing in Japan, now it's going to be just as messed up everywhere else.
All right, Heath, it's cropped. Got it.
Okay.
Moving on. Music. Kenji Yamamoto is not coming back.
Nope.
Surprise, surprise.
I don't think he's exactly welcome.
So the question was, all right, will they just continue onward with Kikuchi music? I mean, Kikuchi had basically composed an all-new score for the Buu Arc moving onward. I mean, it's a clearer divide in Z from the Cell Arc to the Buu Arc than anything before. I mean, there are still old pieces being used and incorporating pieces from the movies, but when you have a new prologue and subtitle track at the beginning of an episode, you know shit just went down. It's a different score. The Buu Arc of Kai is continuing onward in that trend. We have Sumitomo from the Battle of Gods composition realm coming in. Is it Norihito Sumitomo? I believe that's his name.
Yeah, Norihito.
Coming in, scoring the Buu Arc of Kai. All new musical score. So we're on our third musical score for Kai.
Yes, technically.
All right, that's a thing. That happened.
Well, to begin with, when we start off with the Buu Arc, you notice right away almost half the music is taken from Battle of Gods. It's very obvious. It harks back to when the Sign Arc started with Kai back in 2009. And a lot of people would post online that, oh my God, the music is so repetitive.
Yeah.
It's called a weekly show.
Right. It only made so much at that point. It would continue to build over time. I mean, I want to go back to the Toriko One Piece Dragon Ball collaboration special thing. That actually used a couple pieces from Battle of Gods, so I'm not surprised to hear Battle of Gods music showing up over here. It makes sense.
No, and it's what actually happened when Dragon Ball Z was first being broadcast. I mean, like you mentioned, they would pull in a lot of music. I mean, you just had an orchestra come in and recorded all this amazing music for film. Why not pull it into the TV series? And it's a nice carryover because people that are familiar with the films, it will recognize things within the TV series.
Right, and that's just a shonen staple. They all do that.
Yeah, and they've done it forever.
So that's the music. Over on the voice actor side, we of course have to have some updates because it is Dragon Ball Kai and would not be Kai without voice updates. Kind of the biggest one right now that's the most relevant is Videl.
Yeah, that was... A lot of people initially seemed very upset about this. She came back for the movie, and I think that was a special circumstance, and... Definitely. She had other priorities. So who do we get? We go out and say, hey, Furukawa, what's your wife doing? And of course, that's who they went and got. They got Shino Kakanuma. So yeah, I actually, she is growing on me. It's a different bit of a pitch, a different take, but when it comes to a lot of the serious scenes, I feel like she does a great job.
Yeah, I'm going to say, unfortunately, replacing Yuko Minaguchi, who is, I feel very privileged to have gotten a chance to see at Animazement, not this year, but the previous year. And as you mentioned, perhaps her last performance is Videl over in Battle of Gods. I'm pretty sure I said this before. There's no one else that would have wanted playing that role under those circumstances in that story in that movie. So I'm glad Minaguchi got a chance to do it there.
I think she picked something great to go out on.
Definitely. So other than Minaguchi's replacement, are there any other key things going on here? I mean, the main cast is back. We've got Kaioshin back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously... Gori Daisuke is no longer with us,
right?
So we have that to deal with.
Well, I mean, other than Mr. Satan, whose replacement voice actor, I continue to forget after all this time. Unsho Ishizuka? Is that his name?
Yep.
Okay. I think he was... is he playing old Joseph in Stardust Crusaders? I think he is. So that's what I'm used to hearing him as right now.
What have you been watching lately, Mike?
It's all JoJo's all the time. Forget Kai. So other than that, I mean...
Gyumao.
Well, okay, Daisuke Gori.
But only,
well.
I mean... Gosh, I think he's only in like the first 2 episodes of Kai.
I mean, you go back to the Frieza arc, and basically every minion other than Frieza, who's not a minion, but everyone other than Frieza was replaced. Cell arc was pretty consistent here and there, at least with the major players, like Miki Ito is number 18, those kind of folks all back. Over in the Buu arc, is there any other swapping action going on right now?
We do have a couple that... I don't know. It was kind of neat, actually. Arisa, Megumi Arawa came back. But everybody else was a classmate with Gohan. They were all replaced.
Everyone else. So we got one back. All right.
It's kind of it's a hit or miss sort of thing. Pui Pui has been replaced. Yamu's been replaced. Spopovich, Hisao Igawa came back.
Oh, okay. That's a name I recognize from other minor roles. That makes sense.
And then Shin Imori came back as Kibito. So
Okay.
it's kind of nice. We have a couple. Oh, and Dabra.
I was gonna say we have Ruzabudo Ultimo. So many extended vowel sounds.
But everybody else has pretty much been replaced. If they were minor, you'll see a lot of, from what I've noticed, looking up a lot of the new actors. They're all junior actors, so they come on the cheap.
Gotcha. So for the Buu Arc of Kai, if I was going to kind of assign grade levels to people, it feels like the C level people have been replaced, the B level people are there, and the A level people are all still there too.
The A level people are definitely there.
They're always coming back. Okay. So that sounds like that's the voice side going on. I mean, we're going to continue to have more characters, but Buu is kind of the main dude for the rest of the series and just the rest of the main characters. So we're probably pretty set for voices, right?
For the most part. And it's just going to be like everything else. Very minor background characters that are in like one episode here or there where we'll have new actors. But for the most part, everything else from here on out.
I know we've mentioned this far too many times in recent history in the show. Over under on Megumi Hayashibara coming back as Blind Boy. What do you think? What are the chances?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to say it's like 2080.
All right. I'm feeling about the same. All right. I think that's voices. That's about it. So I want to go back to video. And you're saying, Mike, why are we going back to video? We already talked about the widescreen. Heath, can you tell me about the remastering process for the Saiyan arc, the Frieza arc, and the Cell arc? Just on a very basic level. So we had Fuji TV, of course. We had Toei, of course. There's another company involved. What was going on?
Okay, so to begin with, they decided they were going to do Kai. So they went through and they picked out the story, what they wanted to do, all that. And essentially, for the video remastering, they hired a company called Q-Tech, which has done quite a few anime. There are those out on the internet. I will not name names, that are not huge fans of Q-Tech because they have been notorious of utterly destroying a 480p remaster into 1080p. It just, I mean, you have to realize what you're dealing with. It's old footage that's, meant for a 480p display. Yeah. And now you're blowing it up and calling it HD. Q-Tech scanned all of the film given to them by Toei Animation. Toei Animation then took that, back up. They scanned it. Q-Tech themselves remastered it. They adjusted the color. They centered everything. They figured out the cropping, And of course, the cropping wasn't as big of a deal to a lot of people because it was also being released in full screen. So it was kind of a selective cropping, which is actually what the Kai arc is doing now. They are adjusting it as needed to try to fit the most in the frame as possible.
It's the same thing Funimation is kind of... Isn't it strange we live in an era? This is 2014. Again, I keep saying this is 2014 because we live in the distant scientific future. Weird. Companies are praising themselves for doing a pan and scan.
I know.
Do you remember the time when it would have pan and scan in parentheses on the side of the VHS and we would scoff and throw it to the side?
I remember when they first started releasing DVDs and people would say, you have to buy the DVD, stop buying VHS because you can buy the movie in the proper aspect ratio. That was the biggest selling point of all time for DVD when it first came out.
Yeah, or it come with both or whatever. Okay,
anyway,
so back
so
to
Q-Tech would remaster it themselves. Then, along with Fuji TV and Toei Animation, they would get together and figure out which scenes they would like to reanimate due to high flashing or redo some of the key attacks, things like that.
Or just for no reason whatsoever.
Or, yes, that did happen quite often. And Toei Animation themselves actually did all of that. They were the ones that did the reanimated scenes. Q-Tech had nothing to do with it because they themselves are not an animation studio. They just remaster and work with film. So Toei Animation did that, and then they would send it back to Q-Tech, who would insert it in. And then once everything was all done, they'd ship it off to Fuji TV so that they could broadcast it. And then they shipped it off to HappyNet so that they could produce Blu-rays and DVDs. And that essentially, in a nutshell, is the remastering process that we saw.
So Heath, here we are, the Buu Arc of Kai. Q-Tech is not involved anymore. It is Toei all themselves.
Yes.
So the question is, what's going on and why is it so damn green?
There are a couple theories. To begin all this, we started out with Funimation pretty much approaching Toei Animation saying, hey, you guys, can we continue the Kai arc?
Allegedly, supposedly.
Okay, we're going to go with supposedly,
likely.
But so that's what happened. They came in and said, okay, how can we do this as cheap as possible? I think was essentially the discussion. And at this point, I don't think there's really any way
anyone can debate out of they really wanted to put a lot of money into this, because I think it's quite clear that they didn't. If you want to get into the fact that there are now, as we know it, 2 different versions.
Well, we'll get there. Let's hold off on just the quality of the video itself for now. Is it just...
In my theory, I think that kind of plays into it.
Okay. Well, all right, let's define it, and then let's just get right into that.
Okay.
I say, why is it so green? This has nothing to do... I mean, we're not talking about fan subbers, if you want to even call today's people who sub things fan subbers anymore. It's a whole nother debate to have. Not talking about anything that anyone else does to any video. We're talking about the actual video that's being actually broadcast in actual Japan, straight from Julian watching his screen, Kay watching his screen, the direct things off the DVRs. I mean, this is the footage itself. All your digital compression stuff out of the mix. The footage has a green tint to it.
And it is weird.
It's super weird.
I don't know why they did it. But my theory, and this could be way off, but is the fact that we have 2 different versions from what we have seen, because now Korea and a couple other countries have begun airing Kai.
Right.
People have said the green tint is not in the international version.
All right. So we've had these announcements that Toei, the English Toei website, announced that it's going to be the final chapters abroad, and other countries are going to be getting it. And now this Korean broadcast kind of popped up out of nowhere. Oh, this is airing. And Heath, you're saying no green tint on it, possibly.
From what we've
at least for now
been hearing from people, the white is actually white. There's no real tint to it.
All right. So a lot of that remains to be seen.
Yes.
I mean,
that is all hearsay at this point.
And off TV captures, all that stuff.
So far, there have really been no reanimated scenes at all. I think Kay said he found one where they slightly tweaked Kibito's mouth.
And they tweak the mouth and do a slightly different zoom in the process or something.
Yeah, and that's about it. But nothing to the scale at all of what we saw last time with redrawn scenes.
Important point. Yep.
So
we need to talk about this. 2 different versions. What is going on? Why do we think that? So here's how we can set the stage. Prior to Korea, we at Kanzenshuu have been able to independently confirm there is a different version of Kai that is being produced. We are starting to see the results of this now. Heath, what is this different version of Kai?
Well, I actually had to create an entire timeline to even make this make sense in my own head.
I know, it's bonkers.
And then I said, well, I made one, so I might as well post it.
I mean, this is a forum post you're talking about.
Yes.
What I would like to do is do a proper news post, front page of the website, probably in conjunction with this podcast episode. So this will all go up whenever it goes up, kind of outlining this. Like many things, I use the podcast as kind of an outline for doing other things.
Yeah.
All right. So what's going on?
Well, to begin with, the way things set up, we found out that this was going to just be international only. So originally, as far as we can tell, it was solely created for other countries to broadcast. Nothing really was going to happen with it in Japan. If anything did, it was probably just going to be a straight-to-video home release.
That's what it seemed like.
So what ended up happening was everything was in development. It had already been shipped to other countries to begin dubbing it. It was almost ready to be announced as far as we could tell, because we had a lot of Funimation voice actors.
They were talking
about it, saying either I just got done recording, or I'm going to be recording. I'm going to be reprising my roles in the Buu Arc of Kai. And then all of a sudden, lots of things started to happen.
Disappearing, silence, all that
Which really all started with Toriko ending, is my hypothesis.
Around that time.
Because Fuji TV decided, hey, this isn't doing so hot. So they decided they were going to cancel it. They approached Toei Animation and said, hey, what can you guys give us?
What else you got?
And they said, hey, we've been developing Kai.
You want that back?
Yep. And this is my own theory, because this is unconfirmed, but most of the time, new series on Fuji TV, as we've seen with Toriko, Kai, Pretty Cure, they all start in April. They shoot for a spring month. Because of the way school falls within Japan, it just works really well. And so that's what they normally shoot for. As we found out, there are 69 episodes of Dragon Ball Z Kai, the final chapters. the international version of the series. Well, 69 episodes doesn't quite fit in with 52 weeks if that's what they're shooting for. And I don't think they're going to try to stretch that out to 104 weeks or 2 years.
Well, why does it have to be 52? I mean, we're not talking about North American syndication schedules in particular, so why do you care?
They had produced enough episodes to run more than a year, but not quite 2 years for Fuji TV.
Yeah, okay.
And this is where my theory comes in, is that Fuji TV just really didn't want to go beyond a year commitment because they wanted another new series to start up.
Oh, next year. Okay, so kind of give us this as filler, maybe. Talk to you next year.
While they develop something else. Again, that's a theory. It could all be more than that. Who knows?
Okay.
We'll find out eventually.
So we're still at this point here where I'm asking, why are there two versions? What are you talking about? So take it from there.
Yes. In the midst of all this, Funimation and Toei Animation, they've all already been in development and essentially have developed this entire new series of 69 episodes.
And I mean, other countries too. We're talking about Funimation, but I mean, we had Toei for Europe announce it, so other companies are working. So when we say Funimation, it's probably primarily Funimation, but you can lump in some other companies too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm speaking internationally. So now that we have these 69 episodes that have been developed, they've already been shipped out. What is Toei Animation supposed to do? They have Fuji TV approaching them saying, we would like this many episodes. And we have all these other countries that say, wait, we've already got all of these. So what should we do? So Toei Animation, in their brilliance, decided, let's essentially turn it into two separate series. We'll have an international version, which will be released to all of the other countries because we've already put money into this. Other countries have put money into it. Most other countries have already dubbed it. So you've paid voice actors, you've paid technicians, you've rented booth time, all that. So go ahead, all of you other countries, just hold on until we create our own new version, and we want it to come out in Japan first.
Makes sense. I mean, it's their own baby. They can do whatever they want with it. I think I've talked about this. They certainly have agreements and contracts, but I mean, if they're the ultimate rights holders, they can probably just up and decide to do something different if they want.
And the whole thing is, if Toriko would have just ended sooner, this may never have happened.
Right.
We may only have one version.
All right, so I want to stick to this and really dig in here. We still haven't answered two versions. How do we know there were two versions, Heath? What is the difference? What have we seen already that tells us exactly, hey, this international version, if we want to put that in quotes, is different from what aired in Japan?
Well, initially, a lot of people, almost right off the bat, I think we were only 2 or 3 episodes in, were pointing out that,
To the Japanese broadcast.
Yes, from the Japanese broadcast. That things just didn't really line up the way people thought they should. And that if we run at this pace that they were going, you're talking like 40 episodes and they would cover all the material.
It was just flying. There was no...
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about kind of not having breathing room, but from the sounds of it, again, I haven't watched it. You have watched it. It was just kind of going like boom, 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 end of episode.
Yeah, I mean, the Saiyaman, a lot of that was pretty much done in 2 episodes.
Well, I mean, that is such a weird arc because it was different from the manga. It was one of the very few things in the Z adaptation for TV that was different from the manga as opposed to everything else, which was panel for panel with filler. The Saiyaman arc was kind of different in pieces.
It was a hodgepodge. They essentially rewrote it. Hiroshi Toda, you can kind of.
It was mostly the same, but there's filler and then there's changed events. So to do an edit of that, like I tip my hat to them for even being able to do an edit of the Great Saiyaman arc in any way.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it was just blazing forward and it continued onward like that.
Yeah. So initially it was blazing and people were just, essentially doing the math, which is all you can do at that point, and say, well, if we're averaging this many chapters per episode, we would hit a point where either they're going to have to switch to doing straight on Z episodes to Kai episodes to make this thing run long, or we're going to be done in just a couple months. And so a lot of people were kind of concerned. And then Toei Animation Europe announced that they would be releasing Kai, the final chapters, to various European countries. They would be getting their own broadcasts within those respective countries. And they also announced that they would be airing 69 episodes. And then that's really when people started to get confused, because now that we have a final number of 69 episodes, and you're assuming that the Japanese version is that, then we literally would hit the point where we could no longer do 2 chapters an episode. We would get halfway through the Buu Arc, and they would have to do straight up Z to Kai episodes, and people were not thrilled about that.
That defeats the entire purpose.
Exactly. So we're going, well, what's the point then of Kai if you're just going to be doing Z? Then I think I may be the only one who knows this because, again, I'm the only one that pays attention to these things. But every week, well, not every week, about every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, Weekly Shonen Jump or V Jump would announce upcoming episodes of Kai. They would say, here's the episode title, here's the air date, and we would update the site with them. Well, I started to notice, especially in the last month or so, all of these episode titles that were being given to Shueisha were completely wrong.
Yeah.
They didn't match what was actually being broadcast at all.
You're saying what is printed in the magazine issues, when it finally comes to the TV broadcast, the episode title on the screen on TV is different from what had been printed.
For instance, there was, I'm trying to remember which episode it was. It was later on. Episode 107, The Secrets of the Terrible Majin, The Man Behind the Curtain Appears. They kept part of the title, but then shifted it. And one good way, Dragon Ball's always been this way, and frankly, a lot of shonen series have, the title of the episode gives away what's going to happen.
Right.
You have a general idea of what the story is going to be, especially if you're already familiar with it.
I mean, the point of the TV adaptation is that you're a fan of the manga. You've already read it. You want to relive it. Yeah.
So what happened was they actually kept the second part of the episode title and moved it and then rewrote the last part. So it almost seemed like they were adding in more material than they originally had
all right.
planned. And then next up, episode 108. Well, when episode 107 aired, they had a preview for 108, and the title that Fuji TV broadcast for episode 108 was not even in any of the magazines at all. They had completely added in a new episode. So things all of a sudden were really not adding up, because why would Toei Animation all of a sudden start changing episodes? And you think, well, gosh, this has been in development for years and years. Why all of a sudden would they just start picking and choosing and cutting things out and adding things in?
This should be committed to tape and done.
Yeah. They've been recording their lines since November of 2012. We've had interviews with Masako Nozawa saying, it's really nice having the footage right in front of us fully done while we're recording. If it's fully done, why are we going back and making all these edits?
So Heath, we're talking about episode counts being tossed out there, a very strange pace to the episodes themselves, episode titles that don't line up, that don't exist and are changed before they reach their final broadcast. We are also talking about footage in this international version that is not in the Japanese broadcast, right?
And that's, I'd been saying it for a while. Finally, this Korean version started being broadcast, and we do have confirmation that basically the Saiyaman arc that took 2 episodes in the Japanese version is now 3 episodes in the Korean version. And we have footage in that was not in the original Japanese version. And which is weird saying original Japanese version, because technically now the international version is the original version, and the Japanese version
an edit of
is
that. And then whenever you say original Japanese version, we're always referring to Z proper. And now we need to start saying Z proper in all contexts. Man, Kai is, I'm sorry, it's an absolute clusterfuck. It's insane. It's a disaster. It's terrible. What is going on?
It's been so hard to keep track.
Who wants to deal with this? I cannot.
Apparently I do.
Well, you do. I cannot imagine being on the production side of things and even thinking about I would drive myself insane worrying about having to deal with this.
I can only imagine what these meetings were like between either just people at Toei Animation trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do, or being at the negotiating table and having to tell all these other countries, hey guys, listen, here's basically what's going to happen.
Oh my God. I mean, my thoughts on Funimation's home releases aside, again, I tip my hats to you guys, because I'm wearing multiple hats, I guess. I don't know why I'm pluralizing that. I have multiple hats. I'm taking them all off in rapid succession for having to deal with whatever is being thrown any which way. It's nuts.
It's completely nuts.
Kai was an experiment, and it is certainly experiment through to the end here.
It has, I think, eaten up Toei Animation more than they care to admit.
Probably.
And then you pull off something like Battle of Gods.
Yeah, meanwhile.
And, here it is, an entirely new movie, new animation, get voice actors back, and everybody loves it globally, for the most part. And then you have something like Kai. And it goes back to the question that people have been asking since mid-2008 when we found out that this was not new animation. And it begs the question, why did they just not start over?
Or just do the Dragon Ball Hero series for reals, guys?
Yes.
Why didn't you just do that?
I mean, it seems like it's always been sort of a money grab.
I mean, they're a business. Come on. Of course it's a money grab.
And it makes sense. It almost seems like they pushed the envelope as much as they could.
Yeah.
With the money
they
grab.
wanted to make as much money while spending as little. And in the process, they got themselves a total train wreck.
The best part is it's non-consistent at all from start to end.
Yeah.
I mean, you pick one episode at the beginning, you say you watch the second episode of Kai, and you come back and now you watch something in the Cell arc, and now you watch something in Majin Buu arc. You're essentially watching 3 different series.
All right. So I think we've outlined pretty much everything. At this point, I mean, the responses are just overwhelming in the last hour here. Heath, I want to turn it over to Twitter and breeze through as many of these as I can. People have a lot to say about Kai. People have always had a lot to say about Kai.
I know, it's always been an interesting topic.
So I'm just going to start pretty much at the beginning of our timeline as I tossed this question out there an hour ago. We're just going to go through them. Couple quick thoughts, but you all have so many thoughts. So I'm going to read a couple here. I'll get you started. Tara says, that sure was a Kai and Buu. I think Dragon Balls show up at one point.
Yeah.
Man. All right. Malunas here says, I'm surprised it's even happening. And then goes on to say, I need to catch up on the podcast. Yeah, we need to catch up as well.
Just weird because I agree. I'm surprised it's even happening. But it almost got to the point where it had to happen because they've been developing it since 2012.
Gotta toss it out there. All right, I'll do a few more, then I'll turn it over to you. Chris Sukento says, the fact that there are 2 versions, that it's in 16:9, and once again cutting corners with cast changes, not looking good. Let's see, we got Frankie here says, don't like that we're getting a longer version. The Japanese airing seems to stay more true to Kai's promise than the, a few tweets later, international version. Still looking forward to the English dub though, despite the iffy aspects of this continuation. Yeah, it's just iffy all around. I'll do one more here. I'll turn it over to you for a while. Sean, Everybody Can Boom. The knowledge that we'll still get a well-made English dub out of it has let me manage to accept the shortcomings. So far. Sean, I think you're putting a lot of faith in a lot of people right now. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen, because in all likelihood, it will happen. It'll probably be an accurate dub. It'll probably exist at some point. I think you're putting a lot of faith in people right now, the way this is going.
Chris Wackler says, really enjoy the faster pace. And I think I've heard that one.
I mean, that's Kai.
Pretty much as only the positive review from anyone.
So far.
Caleb Thompson said, lost interest after finding out that it will only ever be available in widescreen.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the Kanzenshuu community. We're the shitheads that want it full screen.
AJ writes in saying, an enjoyable but inconsistent mess that reeks of a distinct lack of funds and care can still be enjoyed alongside Kai 1.0.
I guess. I think we have a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome going on with AJ there.
Yeah. We have Navi's Pimp says, I think it's all right. I watch it for the voices. That's what's important. Then our good friend Kaiser Nako pops in and says, the music is unfitting. The actual placement is garbage. The remastering is piss poor. The whole thing feels like a rush job. Have you ever watched their episode of Kai?
Oh, I love it.
Abridged?
I love it. So good.
Best thing I've ever seen. I still to this day will go and watch
I think that's one of the best things they ever did.
And then our pal Jacob jumps in and says, it's a cheap piece of filth with no time and money, i.e. no new animation from scratch, placed in there. Thoroughly lacking in the fine art of using that one thing called silence. I think I've moved well into apathy.
Yeah, he's got one more comment because Jacob simply can't keep it to even 2 tweets. Kai in general exists to tell us just how little the production committee respects the franchise. You know, I kind of feel like that sums it up better than anything, Jacob, is they have so little respect for it. And in turn, I just don't care. It's Dragon Ball. It's a new quote Dragon Ball thing coming out. I just can't bring myself to care. All right, let me take over. I'll do a few here. Jumping back a little bit. Let's see. Frank says, I'm enjoying the Kai Buu arcs. My first time ever watching DBZ in Japanese, so it's been a new experience. Man, Frank, go back. Z proper. I beg you. Let's see. Lindsay says the music dominates the entire episode in an impressive way. And it's not even very good. So it's a letdown at best.
And there have been a lot of people with that complaint.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't want to say unoriginal. It's an original complaint that comes to us almost from the first episode of Kai.
Yeah.
Back in 2009. There's never been breathing room.
Yeah, speaking of Stockholm Syndrome, Willie says, mixed feelings on the BGM. I want to love it, but I can't help but feel it's being cheaply made. Can we just have Yamamoto back?
Oh, poor Yamamoto.
Let's see. Dylan says, glad to see Kai Buu happen for completists reasons, but it's a few years too late. The English dub needs Kai, however. Yeah. I think we've all had that as our main thesis since 2009. See, our buddy Joe Tanuki says, the fact that there's 2 different versions is pretty interesting. I'm actually looking forward to see how they differ. Well, that is taking the glasses half full. We need someone to do it. Here's one from Chauvel, I guess it is. Is it too late to piss all over this thing? Because that's what all the popular kids are doing. Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels that way. And I want to make it clear. We freaking love Dragon Ball. And it hurts us to be apathetic in any way about any Dragon Ball thing. I mean, we want to be fans, but we want to be critical at the same time. And Kai doesn't let us do any of that. I mean, critical in the lols we laugh at it way, but I feel like I can't even critically analyze Kai because I just don't care. And it hurts me in my soul to say that about Dragon Ball.
It hurts a lot. Anyway, and
wow, that was really convincing, man. I was right. Like,
I tried.
Do we need to talk offline? You're right.
I have a singular tear,
man,
but so it's all good.
Okay. All right.
Fran Ortega jumped in and said that Toei is making such a lazy job with Kai's Buu saga that it's not even funny. It's disheartening to see how it has been handled.
Yeah.
And I think he speaks for a lot of people.
Definitely. I mean, we see that repeated over and over through so many comments. Let's see. NJ says, music's lame, new VDL's horrible, and Funimation not officially announcing their dub yet is annoying. Well, talk about entitled. Well, it's kind of true, though. It's kind of true. Kind of feel the same way. Although I haven't watched it, so I really can't comment on it. But from what I've spot checked. But I haven't even really spot checked. You know, I say that. I haven't watched it. Nothing.
I know you haven't watched it.
Like literally nothing. I have not seen it.
You've been very vocal about not watching it.
I'm trying to be. Because I'm trying to hold up my cool kid card if I can't hold my Dragon Ball fan card anymore. So I'm just be like, yo, what, man? F this noise. I ain't even watching it. It's not even a conscious, I'm not even watching it. It's just, oh, whoops. Yeah, I guess that's on.
So Mike from 95 is back?
Maybe. 95, I wasn't into it yet. It was 96.
Well, yeah.
Man, is there anything else? A lot of these comments, I mean, there's a ton more. Josh and other folks having conversations, lots of the same points over and over. So I think I'm just going to leave it there. I mean, we've heard everything there is to hear. Heath, we're only like 3 months into this, and it's just, well, yep.
That's pretty much the consensus, it seems.
All right. I want to go out on a high note because we love Dragon Ball. We love what we do with Dragon Ball. We have an opportunity as fans to really dive into the archives and enjoy Dragon Ball in a way that lets us enjoy Dragon Ball. So Kai, as it airs, let's put it behind us, even though it's going to continue onward and will only continue to make us more crazy from here. Heath, I want to wrap up the show. Couple cool things that have been going on the website because Kanzenshuu is huge, has a ton of stuff. Something that you and Julian have been working on for an incredibly long time. And part of it is finally live and will continue to be built upon, just like pretty much all of our sections. What is new to the manga guide on Kanzenshuu?
An ongoing fun project that we've had has been the weekly Shonen Jump serialization
section. I mean, forever, as far as I can remember, no one's ever really had one.
No, we're talking about what's the cover? What's the comment that Toriyama wrote with that chapter? When did it come out? Because the question of when did it come out, it's not as simple as you think it is.
No. For a long time, and I started this by myself separately when I was running Kanzenshuu way back in the day. I made a release calendar, and that's
I remember that.
really where a lot of this all started. It was a feature that we had that didn't get ported over to Kanzenshuu for very good reasons, because Julie and I had already kind of been talking about doing this, and it was going to be essentially the same thing. What we had back then at that point was I had no access to Japan like Julian does.
Right.
So I got all of my release dates, which everyone, as far back as I can remember, has gotten theirs off of the cover of every Weekly Shonen Jump issue.
Makes sense.
It has a date on there. Well, the problem with that date is it's an issue date. It's not the actual date that the issue itself was released. It's just an impartial number that's put on there, especially for Weekly Shonen Jump, because it's a weekly issue. They're just done by weeks. So they're saying this is for this week. But really, the issue came out 2 weeks before that.
Right, and I know something that we talk about, the best way to describe it is how V-Jump and Psycho Jump come out. V-Jump comes out on the 21st of every month, but it's dated 2 months in the future. So this is June right now. Next week, on June 21st, will be the August 2014 issue of V-Jump. And Psycho Jump usually comes out around the 4th of every month, and that's dated for the next month. So we just had June 4th-ish, I guess, whatever it is, the July issue.
If it comes out at the beginning of a month, it's only post-dated a month. If it comes out at the end of a month, it's post-dated 2 months.
Right. So the same thing was going on with Weekly Shonen Jump in Japan, where it was, this is when it came out, but this is the week that it's published for. That doesn't make any sense, but that's how it is.
And the only way to know, at least for us at this point, because nobody documented it, is to actually go look at old issues, and in the back of each issue would be basically an ad for the upcoming issue of Jump.
Right.
And it would list a street date of when it would be available on newsstands.
Right, which is different from the date published on that very next issue.
Yep. So Julian, in his infinite wisdom, found out that a lot of libraries still have issues. So he found a local one near him. I say local, but he had to get on the train and go and spend a day.
Right.
And went and had to reserve a spot in the library and sat down, and a wonderful lady on a cart brought him out issue upon issue of Jump, and he sat there and cataloged all of the official release dates. So that's where all of those come from.
Right. So we have those. And in the meantime, something Peking Duck, Japanese Dragon Ball fan #1 extraordinaire, had been doing in Japanese, of course, because he's in Japan and speaks Japanese because he's Japanese. He's been cataloging all of Toriyama's comments from each and every Weekly Jump issue as well. So Julian had been taking those and doing translations, and honestly doing kind of like the proofreading fact checking for Peking Duck as well. I think Julian ended up coming up with, oh, this is duplicated, this is written wrong. You really need two sets of eyes on that kind of stuff. So thankfully,
because Peking Duck actually released a book in Japan of all of these comments. And one time when, I think it was when they were doing the quiz, and Julian was over there, Peking Duck gave him a copy of the book for free and said, here, have at it. You can take a look at it. And before that, he had been posting them on Twitter.
Yeah, he made a Twitter account for him.
And so Jake had been...
Oh, that's right. Jake
starting to translate those.
Yeah.
And with Jake disposed at the time, I started talking to Julian about getting those done. And I actually typed them all up, copied them from Twitter. And that's when we started to notice, there are dates that were missing that we didn't have. There were duplicates. And that's when Julian's had to go back and talk to Peking Duck and say, hey, can you look in the original issue of Jump? Because
one of those,
this has been printed twice. So, yeah, it's been really fun. All the people we've been able to talk to in Japan, all the research we've been able to do.
All the nice librarians.
Yes. So while Julian was doing all that, then I was tracking down all of the cover issues of Jump. I've been doing that for years and years.
Not as easy as you think.
Yeah, this has actually been an ongoing project since before we even merged.
I mean, there's one issue of Monthly Jump that I needed the cover because Nekomajin, was it Nekomajin Mike or 2 or something like
Mike,
that?
I think it was.
I just didn't have the cover image. And the best resource I found was, I guess, Claymore was being published in Monthly Jump, but the Mike issue was a month before Claymore started, so the Claymore wiki didn't have that Monthly Jump. And honestly, folks in Japan couldn't find an online image of this Monthly Jump issue. Finally, again, Julian at the library kind of phone hovered over top because they wouldn't let you scan things. So he tried to center his phone as best as possible over top this old Monthly Jump. So now we finally have a cover image of that Monthly Jump.
I had to have him do that myself.
It's
on
crazy.
A couple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been years of watching online auctions when people post things, and that's where a lot of these come from. So.
We have something like that coming up soon, something that I've had a draft of for months, and then I actually ended up purchasing more things to triple check various bits of information. We're doing way too much research for our own good, for things that we care about.
And the nice thing is for anyone that's concerned out there that we only have the first 2 years up right now. Most of the other pages are pretty much done. We have all the chapters translated. We have everything. Well, we have everything translated.
It's just the grunt work.
We have all the images done. I have those all resized, ready to go. We just have to type up a lot of the paragraph stuff at the top. So it's coming. It's in the works. So it is going to get done.
In terms of content, just a couple last things that we've done somewhat recently. The July issue of Psycho Jump did have a 3-question Scouter Q&A with Naho Oishi of Dragon Ball SD, asking questions to Toriyama. So you can check that out. Julian translated that. And then I did a little refresh of the video games page over in the rumor guide. Brought back a lot of sound files that had been archived and not lost, but just in the transition to Kanzenshuu, not as well documented as I would have liked. So that's all re-archived there. Video files where appropriate, all that stuff. And I actually added in some new information to one of them, courtesy of French superfan Cold Skin over on our forum, digging into the debug menus of the Super Butoden games and pulling things out. So the old rumor of all Dragon Ball games are unfinished, rushed products. You could say that about Kai, I guess. Kai, by extension of Kenji Yamamoto, kind of getting dragged down. Some updates over there, so check that stuff out if you're interested in things left behind in the coding of games. There's a lot of really cool stuff to check out there. We got to bring this to a close. This is
do we have to?
This three-eyed cowboy is back in the saddle for hopefully not the last ride. That was a podcast. We did that.
We did. We did a podcast. Look at us.
You have a long night ahead of you, don't you?
I do. Yeah.
Dude, I'm sorry.
I guess for those that don't know, I've been working nights. It's been quite fun.
What are you building?
We are building a highway.
That's what I thought. I was like, is it a bridge? No, it's got to be bigger than a bridge.
It's a bridge that has, or it's a highway that has bridges.
How do I English?
It's a bridge that has a highway. But yeah, so it's been actually really, I guess I'll say different, because normally like you and I are always on the same schedule and we can talk throughout the day.
You're on the same schedule as Julian now.
And now I just talk to Julian like all the time. It's completely flip-flop.
Yeah, it's been tough to line up schedules, which is part of it. Some of the last few episodes, what I've been doing is kind of these piecemeal things where I'll record a topic kind of in a vacuum, in a bubble. I'll port it back into a show and I'll do a little intro narration, kind of get the thing set up. I'm usually really hesitant to do that. I guess I'm the host of the show, I suppose. I mean, I've been doing this for so long. I produce the whole damn thing. So it's like, I don't want it to be my show. It's all of us, all of Kanzenshuu, make it what it is. But if people really want it back weekly, I could talk to myself for a while. I don't want to, though. So I think over these next couple weeks, it might still be sporadic again, just as we line up schedules. But we're still here. Don't worry.
For the most part, this worked out for us, so we can always try it again if we need to.
We can. I got to go basically straight to bed, though. I got an early morning. But I'm taking a half day tomorrow, so that'll be nice.
Woohoo.
So just get myself through that morning. I'll just drink more coffee than I usually do.
I will say the one nice thing about working at nights is when I need to do site work, there's nobody on.
So what are you doing?
What am I doing?
What are you doing at work?
I'm working.
On Kanzenshuu?
Well, rarely.
Oh, all right.
A lot of the stuff that goes up is stuff that I already have done on my computer. And I just, when I'm in the office, it's like, oh,
I'll throw this up.
Trust me, I know what that's like.
So
it's me every day. Man, we got a lot of stuff coming up. CD singles. Have there been games? I don't even know what's going on.
Battle of Gods is premiering in August.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that at the top of the show. That's a big thing. That's coming.
Yep.
Well, of course.
We're going to find out what theaters it goes into here fairly soon. So.
I hope so, yeah. I mean, between Philly and New York, I have easy access to get the stuff. You out in
I'm guessing I'm going to have to go to
USA.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
It might be easy for you to just fly out here and go see it with us.
I know.
So we'll of course talk about that. I mean, Julian covered your Japanese debut, and I'm happy to cover the North American debut. Other countries have had it for a while now. Oh man, I didn't mention this. Miguel sent me the Mexican release of Battle of Gods, so I have to check that out. So my Battle of Gods collection is up to 3. Can it one day rival the DBZ Movie 1 collection? We'll see.
I don't know, because Battle of Gods will be more accessible since it's newer.
Right. And I can actually just buy it myself when it comes out places. So
exactly.
We'll see. All right, we've been going for a while. Heath, this has been whatever the hell episode of our podcast it has been. Was it
like 4 million, I think? I don't know.
Weekly, I can't make any guarantees right now. We are not going anywhere. Don't worry about it. Kanzenshuu going strong. Just time zones are a bitch right now. It's just not working out. We'll get there. A lot of cool things. Our buddy Josh Kendamu, you've read his report of Xenoverse from E3. I want him on the show soon to talk about that. I couldn't line it up this weekend, and then you and I decided to do this, so we'll get there. Lots of great topics, lots of great discussions, lots of great news. We're getting there. Don't worry about it. You have been Heath. Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad this worked out.
You got it. Thank you. My name is Mike, VegettoEX for Heath over there, from me, for Julian off in Japan, for Jake protecting us on Jupiter, although I guess he outed himself as being in Hawaii right now.
Ha. Now that he brought it
Ta-da!
up, you can say it.
He's on the beach. Hooray. I mean, he's not really on the beach often.
No.
Probably is often enough. For all those fine folks, again, Mike, VegettoEX, peace out. We will see you whatever it is next time here on the show. Kanzenshuu, www.kanzenshuu.com. It's a website, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, I guess Tumblr. I should just start cross-posting things there. That's where everyone is now. You want to Snapchat?
We need more cat pictures.
I can make that happen.
I'm sure you can.
Watch out what you wish for. So again, it's great, wonderful. Dragon Ball, despite what you heard us talking about Kai, we love it. We love talking about it. See you next time.